bad. I hit him at 70 miles an hour. Split my helmet in half, but knocked me out of my shoes. You know, I mean, it hit hard.
The crash that nearly tore George Clooney from Amal's arms left their world in pieces. July 2018, on a sunlit Sardinian road, George's body was hurled like a rag doll in a collision so violent it shattered bones, dreams, and everything they thought was secure. Their haven at Lake Como became a battlefield for recovery, love, and survival. Tune in to the moment everything fell apart and how they fought to rise from the ashes. The crash that changed the Clooneys. George was there working on the series Catch-22, buzzing around on his motorcycle like a man who'd never met a speed limit he liked. Then, disaster. A car veered into his path and George's scooter smashed into it with bone-crunching force. He flew into the air, landing hard on the asphalt. His leg messed up, his arm a disaster, his pelvis, don't even ask. It wasn't just an accident, it was the kind of crash that makes headlines and not the fun kind. But what no one could have predicted, what would change everything, was what they found in his pocket at the hospital. When Amal got the call, it was like her heart dropped into her stomach. Her husband, her George, was lying in a hospital, broken and helpless. The image of him, usually so full of life and energy, now reduced to this? It hit her like a punch. And the cherry on top? While he was lying there, strangers whipped out their phones to snap pics and shoot videos. Helping him? Not so much. Amal later said that part haunted her. It was like the world saw her husband as a headline, not a human being. After the accident, things changed fast. Amal, shaken to her core, laid down the law. Motorcycles, done. Forever. He didn't argue. How could he? The crash wasn't just a wake-up call for him, but a stark reminder for both of them about how quickly life can turn upside down. With twin toddlers waiting for him at home, the stakes were too high to play games with fate anymore. The Clooneys retreated to their villa on Lake Como to heal. And by heal, we're talking about more than just his battered body. Amal put her high-powered legal career on pause to play nurse, counselor, and full-time mom. He might be the movie star, but in those months, Amal was the star of the show. Her strength, her care, her ability to hold it all together, that's what got them through. But let's not sugarcoat it. Those days weren't exactly a spa retreat. Between his painful recovery and Amal's quiet panic about what could have happened, things were raw. She couldn't stop thinking, what if she'd lost him? What if their twins, Ella and Alexander, had to grow up without their dad? It was the kind of anxiety that sits heavy on your chest, night after sleepless night. And then there was the media circus. Paparazzi were everywhere, itching for the next big scoop. For a couple used to living in the public eye, this was next-level invasive. Amal had dealt with global leaders in international courtrooms, but now she had to shield her kids and her recovering husband from photographers hiding in bushes. It was relentless. This wasn't just a tough chapter, it was a rewrite of their whole book. Once the guy who couldn't resist a fast bike and a wild adventure, he became a family-first kind of man. Quiet mornings with the twins replaced adrenaline-fueled rides. Amal, always calm under pressure, learned just how deep her love and resilience went. Together, they came out of it not just scarred, but stronger. The days stretched into weeks, then months as they worked to rebuild. Their time at Lake Como became less about luxury and more about finding a new normal. He leaned heavily on Amal's unwavering support. It was Amal who managed the doctors, Amal who kept the press at bay, Amal who made sure the twins' lives stayed as stable as possible. The strength she showed was incredible, especially when paired with her own quiet suffering. She'd never let it show to him, but inside she was battling a constant fear of what could have been. His injuries were severe enough to require months of therapy. Learning to walk comfortably again, let alone resuming any semblance of an active lifestyle, was a long road. For a man used to moving through the world with ease, it was humbling. Each step was a victory, and each small win came with Amal cheering him on, reminding him of how far he'd come. The crash also forced him to confront the fragility of his life. For years, he'd been the ultimate charmer, the risk-taker, the guy who seemed untouchable. This accident shattered that illusion. He had to face the reality that his decisions didn't just affect him anymore. There was Amal, his rock, his partner, his equal, who nearly lost him. And there were the twins, the little lives he helped bring into the world who needed their dad to be there, whole and present. For Amal, the accident reshaped her priorities in ways she hadn't expected. Her career as a human rights lawyer had always been at the forefront of her identity. But in those months, the family became her entire world. She didn't walk away from her work, she'd never do that, but she started to rethink how she balanced her professional and personal lives. The accident was a wake-up call to cherish the moments they had, the ones that didn't involve courtrooms or cameras or the constant pressure to perform. Their Italian villa became a place of refuge. Quiet evenings by the lake replaced star-studded events. Simple dinners with the twins became more important than elaborate nights out. Amal and her husband found themselves reconnecting on a deeper level, their shared ordeal forging a bond that went beyond the surface. It wasn't just about surviving the crash, it was about thriving in its aftermath. Despite the tranquility of Lake Como, the world didn't stop turning. The media continued to hound them, turning even the smallest outings into spectacles. He, ever the seasoned celebrity, handled it with his usual charm, but Amal took a more protective stance. She'd spent years in the public eye as a lawyer, but this was different. This was personal. She wasn't just protecting herself, she was shielding her family from a world that always wanted more. As his recovery progressed, he started to ease back into his professional life. But the accident had changed him. The projects he chose, the roles he accepted, all reflected a man who had faced his mortality and came out the other side with a clearer sense of what mattered. Amal, too, returned to her work with renewed vigor, taking on cases that aligned with her passion for justice and equality. But she always made time for her family, carving out moments that were just for them. The lessons they learned during those months were profound. They learned the value of slowing down, of prioritizing what truly matters. They learned that love isn't just about the good times, it's about weathering the storms together. They learned that even in the face of unimaginable pain, there's room for growth and gratitude. Their story was no longer about the crash, it was about what came next. Struggling to keep it together. Despite the challenges, they recently celebrated 10 years of marriage. From their stunning Venetian wedding to their low-key family life in the English countryside, their journey has been anything but ordinary. Yet as they navigate this latest chapter, the question remains, is their love story strong enough to weather the storm? 10 years in, they have achieved what many couples dream of, a family, a shared purpose, and a legacy. However, the road ahead looks anything but smooth. Balancing two demanding careers, raising children, and maintaining their privacy in an unforgiving public eye is no small feat. Whether their marriage is on the rocks or just hitting a rough patch, one thing's for sure. The world is watching. And if there's one lesson to take away from their saga, it's that even the most glamorous couples face the grind of real life. The question isn't whether they'll survive the spotlight, it's whether they can survive each other. Their marriage, a Hollywood heartthrob and a powerhouse human rights lawyer. Sounds like the ultimate dream team, right? They've got the looks, the brains, and the charm, but don't be fooled. Behind the magazine covers and picture-perfect smiles lies a reality far messier than anyone would expect. Think their lives are all glamorous parties and dreamy getaways? Guess again. This story isn't about their wedding, no Venice gondola fairy tales here. It's about the pressure cooker they live in, one that'll leave you questioning if fame and success are really worth the cost. From the moment they went public with their relationship, they became everyone's favorite obsession. Hollywood royalty meets international law hero. Their 2014 wedding wasn't just a big deal, it was the event. Fancy outfits, star-studded guest list, Venice as the backdrop. It screamed perfection. But while we were busy swooning over their love story, the real challenges were just beginning. Imagine trying to juggle two high-stakes careers, raise twins, and keep your sanity while the world watches your every move. Sounds exhausting, doesn't it? Let's start with him. He's been famous for ages thanks to roles like Dr. Doug Ross on ER and a string of blockbuster movies. Add his tequila empire, ever heard of Casamigos, and his activism, and you've got a guy who's always in the spotlight. But fame isn't all red carpets and fan mail. He's talked about how exhausting it is to keep up the charming, cool guy persona. Imagine being expected to be on all the time. Walking through a park? Forget it. Paparazzi are lurking. Dinner out with the family? Cue strangers snapping photos. Even your downtime becomes a performance. Then there's Amal. Before she met him, she was already a big deal in her own right, tackling war crimes, representing political prisoners, and making headlines for her legal smarts. She wasn't chasing fame, it found her. Suddenly, every outfit she wore, every case she took on, and every word she said was under a microscope. For someone used to focusing on serious global issues, becoming a tabloid darling was probably the last thing she wanted. Now, she's not just a lawyer, she's a celebrity, whether she likes it or not. And their kids? Alexander and Ella might be the luckiest twins alive, but they're growing up in a world where normal doesn't exist. Bodyguards, private jets, and a fortress-like home life might keep them safe, but it also isolates them. Amal and her husband are trying to shield their kids from the craziness of fame, but how do you give your children a normal childhood when the world won't stop watching? Even their so-called escapes aren't really escapes. Their villa in Lake Como, a place that should scream peaceful retreat, has become a hotspot for nosy photographers and drone enthusiasts. Imagine waking up to strangers' cameras flying over your morning coffee. Not exactly the dreamy hideaway they'd hoped for. The careers don't help either. Amal's work takes her to some of the world's most dangerous places. She's facing down dictators, defending human rights, and getting caught in political crossfires. It's not just stressful, it's life-threatening. He isn't exactly taking it easy either. Between acting, directing, and managing billion-dollar ventures, he's stretched thin. Their schedules rarely sync up, and even with promises to never spend more than a week apart, real life doesn't always cooperate. But the toughest part? The relentless expectations. They're seen as a power couple who've got it all, which leaves zero room for mistakes. Every move they make is analyzed. Amal's groundbreaking legal cases? People comment on her shoes instead. His philanthropy? Some call it PR. Even their marriage isn't safe from speculation. Are they fighting? Are they too busy for each other? When's the divorce announcement coming? The world loves a perfect couple almost as much as it loves tearing them down. Despite all this, they're making it work, kind of. They've got strategies to cope, like humor, his secret weapon, and purpose-driven work, Amal's saving grace. When they're not jet-setting across the globe, they're trying to create small pockets of normalcy. Playing with their kids, relaxing at home, or just finding quiet moments to reconnect. Those little things matter when your life feels like a three-ring circus. The truth? They're doing their best to keep the fairy tale alive, but it's not easy. Fame might look glamorous from the outside, but the inside story is far more complicated. Balancing careers, family, and the never-ending demands of the spotlight is a Herculean task. Yet through all the chaos, they've managed to keep moving forward. Not because they're perfect, but because they're determined to make it work. And honestly, that's more impressive than any wedding in Venice. To truly grasp what they're up against, it helps to dig even deeper into their lives. Amal's work often involves traveling to conflict zones and facing some of the darkest aspects of humanity. She stood her ground in courtrooms around the world, defending the voiceless and shining a light on injustices that most people would rather ignore. But doing this comes with a heavy cost, both emotionally and physically. Each case she takes on requires an enormous amount of preparation, research, and emotional resilience. The stakes are always high, and the outcomes can impact countless lives. It's no wonder that the weight of her work occasionally seeps into her personal life, leaving her drained and needing time to recharge. Even as they tackle challenges on different fronts, the divide between their two worlds seems to grow. Navigating two worlds. For him, the challenges are different but no less intense. His roles in Hollywood have evolved over the years, moving from acting to directing and producing. Each of these comes with its own set of stresses. Being in charge of a film, from funding to casting to post-production, is a job that demands constant attention to detail and a never-ending series of decisions. Then there's his tequila empire. While selling Casamigos was a lucrative move, staying involved in the brand's promotion means his schedule is packed with meetings, events, and public appearances. All of this makes finding time for family and relaxation an ongoing struggle. Through it all, they remain committed to their shared mission of making the world a better place. Their philanthropic efforts are a natural extension of their respective careers. The Clooney Foundation for Justice is a prime example of how they've channeled their influence into meaningful action. Whether it's advocating for refugees, funding education initiatives, or supporting victims of war crimes, their work is a powerful reminder of the good that can come from leveraging fame for a cause. However, the demands of running a foundation while juggling their already packed schedules only add to the complexity of their lives. It's easy to look at them and think they have it all. The truth is far more nuanced. They're navigating a path that few could manage, balancing their extraordinary careers with the equally extraordinary challenges that come with being one of the most recognizable couples in the world. Their journey isn't just about love and success, it's about resilience, compromise, and the determination to stay true to themselves and each other. Fame may be a double-edged sword, but for them, it's also a tool they've learned to wield with grace and purpose. What makes their story compelling isn't the glamour of the accolades. It's the way they confront the obstacles that come their way, refusing to let the pressures of fame define them. Whether they're taking on global injustices or simply carving out time to be with their children, their ability to rise above the chaos is what truly sets them apart. Their lives may be far from ordinary, but their commitment to each other and the causes they care about is something we can all admire. It's a reminder that even in the most dazzling lives, the human struggle is always present, and the effort to overcome it is what makes the story worth telling. Still, there's a lot more that goes into their lives than meets the eye. Let's delve into Amal's legal work, a career filled with high-stakes drama and profound impact. Representing Yazidi survivors against ISIS leaders, defending journalists wrongfully imprisoned, and tackling corruption on an international scale are just a few of her accomplishments. Each case involves untold hours of preparation. She meets with survivors, pores over mountains of evidence, and presents arguments that can shift global narratives. These are not courtroom dramas, but life-and-death situations. Every win is a step toward justice, but the emotional cost is immense. Her husband, too, grapples with his own set of high-pressure projects. As a director, he's a perfectionist, pushing himself and his teams to create films that resonate. He's not content to churn out movies for box office returns, he aims for stories that matter. Whether it's a political thriller or a heartfelt drama, the weight of delivering meaningful cinema sits squarely on his shoulders. Add to that his advocacy for Darfur and efforts to combat corruption in South Sudan, and you'll see a man who's much more than his Hollywood persona. And then there are the challenges of parenting. Alexander and Ella may have famous parents, but Amal and her husband are determined to keep them grounded. They're raising their children with an awareness of privilege, but also an understanding of responsibility. He has said he wants his kids to be compassionate and curious, not entitled. It's a fine line to walk, especially when your family lives in the public eye. The couple has made tough choices to protect their children, including legal actions against tabloids that overstep boundaries. Their relationship, too, requires constant work. Between Amal's travel to war zones and his time on set, maintaining a connection takes effort. They've implemented rules, like making time to talk every day, to ensure they stay close despite physical distance. It's not always easy, but their commitment to each other has been unwavering. They've built a partnership based on mutual respect, shared values, and an ability to laugh even in tough times. As they continue to navigate this life of extremes, one thing remains clear: their resilience. Amal and her husband embody the idea that challenges, no matter how daunting, can be met head-on with grace, determination, and a willingness to adapt. Their story is a testament to what's possible when love, purpose, and hard work come together. A story that reminds us all to keep striving, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Their day-to-day lives are a fascinating balance of extremes. He, despite his fame, often seeks refuge in routine. He has a deep appreciation for the simple joys of life: a quiet morning coffee, an afternoon spent tinkering with scripts, or even attempting to cook for the family. He has remarked in interviews how much he values the grounding force of domestic life, a stark contrast to the chaos of Hollywood and the philanthropic events he attends. Amal, on the other hand, finds solace in intellectual pursuits. Her commitment to justice and equality drives her even when she's faced with staggering odds. They've both admitted that their differing worlds, Hollywood and human rights law, can feel like galaxies apart, but that's where their strength lies. It's in the willingness to bridge those worlds that their partnership flourishes. Beyond their careers, the couple is known for their incredible hospitality. They've opened their homes to refugees and activists, providing both physical and moral support to those who need it most. For him, this is an extension of his activism. For Amal, it's a reflection of her deep-seated values. Even their approach to raising Alexander and Ella reflects a careful balance of privilege and responsibility. While the twins are growing up in a world filled with unimaginable luxuries, their parents are keenly aware of the importance of instilling humility and kindness. He often jokes about how he's teaching his kids to prank each other, a nod to his well-known sense of humor, but there's a deeper lesson there. Humor, he believes, is a way to stay grounded and connected in a life that often feels surreal. It's clear that their journey is far from a fairy tale. Their story is one of resilience, adaptability, and an unwavering commitment to each other and the causes they hold dear. Whether they're navigating the pressures of fame, advocating for justice, or simply enjoying a family dinner away from the spotlight, they prove that true partnership is about facing life's complexities together, with grace, humor, and a shared determination to make the world a better place. Are love and ambition a recipe for greatness or disaster? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more compelling stories like this one.